Hashtag, I speak 9 languages, the maid said proudly. The prince laughs, but is shocked when he sees her. Before we begin, let us know where you're listening from. After the story, rate it from 1 to 10. Now let's start. In the year of our Lord 1814, when Napoleon was safely exiled, or so we thought, and the Prince Regent's waistcoats grew ever more expansive with each passing season, there lived in London a young woman of exceptional talents and deplorable fortune. Yes, dear reader, deplorable. For what good are talents when one's circumstances dictate that they must be hidden beneath a servant's cap and apron? Lady Zenobia Montague had once resided in the most fashionable quarter of Mayfair, her future as bright as the chandeliers that illuminated Almack's during the height of the season. But fate, that most fickle of mistresses, had other designs. After her father, the late Earl of Hertford, lost the family fortune to gaming and subsequently departed this mortal coil, some say from shame, others from an excess of brandy, Zenobia found herself in circumstances that would make even the most stalwart of heroines tremble. One must adapt or perish, she had told her weeping mother before the Countess retreated to a modest cottage in Bath under the protection of a disapproving sister-in-law. And adapt Zenobia did. With her golden curls tucked beneath a plain cap and her fine manners carefully modulated to match her new station, she secured a position as lady's maid to the formidable Duchess of Ivington. The Duchess, blessed with more wealth than wit, never suspected that the quiet girl who dressed her hair had once been presented at court. Zipporah, the Duchess called her, for Zenobia had deemed it necessary to alter her name along with her circumstances. Mind you press my blue silk properly for Lady Pennington's ball. I shall not be outshone by that woman again. Yes, your grace, Zenobia replied, curtsying with precisely the degree of deference expected of her station, not too deep to suggest mockery, not too shallow to suggest impertinence. It was a delicate balance, one she had mastered along with her other secret accomplishments. And accomplished she was, for while the ton believed Lady Zenobia Montague had vanished to the continent, a convenient fiction her mother maintained through carefully crafted letters, she had instead transformed herself into the perfect servant, invisible when desired, efficient when needed, and, most crucially, silent about her true identity. But oh, dear reader, the secrets that simmered beneath that servant's cap. Languages: French, Italian, Greek, Latin, German, Spanish, Russian, Portuguese, and her native English, all spoken with the fluency of a diplomat. Music: the pianoforte and harp played with such skill that once, in happier times, a visiting Austrian composer had pronounced her gifted. Dancing: every step from the cotillion to the waltz, that scandalous import, executed with natural grace. And wit: sharp as a newly honed blade but carefully sheathed behind downcast eyes. All these treasures hidden in plain sight, like pearls cast before, well, perhaps not swine, but certainly before those who would never recognize their value. Until, that is, the arrival of Lord Kieran Ivington. Lord Kieran, second son of the Duke of Ravenhurst, had returned to England after years abroad serving the crown in capacities that gentlemen discussed in hushed tones over brandy, but never mentioned in the presence of ladies. Tall, with shoulders that filled his impeccably tailored coats to perfection and eyes the precise shade of a stormy sea, he caused quite the stir among the marriage-minded mammas of the ton. He speaks 5 languages and has a fortune of 30,000 a year, whispered Lady Featherington to her eager daughter. He's killed a man in a duel in Vienna, murmured Sir Humphrey Bassett to his club companions. He dances divinely but smiles rarely, reported Miss Letitia Pembroke after her 2 turns with him at Lady Jersey's ball. All agreed he was the catch of the season, despite his unfortunate habit of speaking his mind when diplomacy might serve better. Which brings us, dear reader, to the fateful evening when Lord Kieran found himself at the Duchess of Ivington's annual spring ball, an event considered unmissable by those with any pretension to social standing. The Duchess, resplendent in her properly pressed blue silk, Zenobia had indeed worked wonders with it, presided over the affair like a general commanding troops. Lord Kieran, she cooed, catching his arm as he attempted to navigate toward the refreshment room. You simply must meet my niece, Dorothea. She plays the pianoforte most enchantingly. Lord Kieran, who had endured 17 such introductions that evening alone, merely inclined his head. Perhaps later, Your Grace. I find myself in need of refreshment at present. The Duchess, not to be deterred, tightened her grip. Nonsense. Dorothea is just preparing to favor us with a performance. I insist you come listen. Now, Lord Kieran possessed many virtues: courage, honor, intelligence, but patience with society matrons was not among them. Nevertheless, he allowed himself to be led to the music room, where a nervous young lady in sprigged muslin was settling herself at the pianoforte. Zenobia, meanwhile, had been dispatched to fetch the Duchess's fan, left carelessly in the library earlier. As she hurried through the corridors normally forbidden to servants during social gatherings, she heard the first hesitant notes of Mozart's sonata in C major. Played, she noted with an involuntary wince, at a tempo that would have made the composer reach for his smelling salts. She had retrieved the fan and was about to return to the servants' quarters when disaster struck. From the music room came a discordant crash, followed by a collective gasp. "My fingers, they've cramped terribly," came a tearful voice. "I cannot continue." The Duchess's voice rose above the murmurs. "This is most distressing. Half the ton has gathered to hear music, and now." Zenobia froze, clutching the fan. She should return to the kitchens immediately. She should. "Perhaps one of the other young ladies might oblige," suggested an elderly gentleman. "They've all prepared different pieces," lamented the Duchess. "And the sheet music for Mozart. Is there no one else who might play from memory?" This voice, deep and impatient, belonged to Lord Kieran. Later, Zenobia would blame temporary insanity brought on by 2 years of stifling her true nature. In that moment, however, she simply acted. Slipping into the music room through a side door, she approached the Duchess and curtsied. "Your fan, Your Grace," she murmured, offering the item. The Duchess snatched it distractedly. Yes, thank you. Now return to." "If I may, Your Grace," Zenobia continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I believe I could play the piece." The room fell silent. The Duchess stared at her maid as though she had suddenly sprouted a second head. "You?" she finally managed. "Yes, Your Grace. I had some instruction in my youth." Lord Kieran, standing nearby, laughed outright. "The maid offers to entertain the ton. What next? Will the footman recite Shakespeare?" A flush rose to Zenobia's cheeks, but she kept her eyes modestly lowered. "I meant no offense, my lord. I merely thought to help her Grace in her moment of need." The Duchess, recovering her composure, began to splutter about impropriety and knowing one's place, but was interrupted by Lady Pennington, her great rival in society. "Oh, do let the girl try, Emberton," she said with ill-concealed glee. "It shall be the most novel entertainment of the season. Either she plays well and saves your musicale, or she fails spectacularly and provides us all with an amusing anecdote for tomorrow's calls." Put this way, the Duchess could hardly refuse without appearing afraid. She sniffed and waved a hand. "Very well. Zipporah, you may attempt the piece. But mind your place." Zenobia curtsied again and moved to the pianoforte. As she settled on the bench, adjusting her skirts with automatic grace, she heard Lord Kieran comment to his companion. "This should prove diverting, if nothing else." She placed her fingers on the keys, those fingers that had once been praised by masters, now reddened from lye soap and housework, and began to play. The opening notes filled the room, perfectly timed, each phrase shaped with the understanding that comes only from true musicianship. As she continued, her body swayed slightly with the emotion of the piece, her face transformed by the joy of creation after so long denied. The room felt utterly silent save for the music. When she finished the sonata, the silence persisted for 1 heartbeat, 2, then erupted in enthusiastic applause. "Brava!" called Lady Pennington, looking genuinely astonished. "Extraordinary," declared the elderly gentleman. Zenobia rose and curtsied deeply, her eyes still downcast despite the triumph singing in her veins. "Where did you learn to play like that?" demanded the Duchess, her expression hovering between pride at the success of her event and suspicion at being so thoroughly surprised by her own servant. "I had a fortunate childhood, Your Grace," Zenobia answered carefully. "My mother valued accomplishments." "Clearly more than most," remarked Lord Kieran, who had moved closer during the performance. Gone was the mockery from his expression, replaced by keen interest. You play with remarkable sensitivity. Zenobia curtsied again. Thank you, my lord. Do you speak any languages besides English? He asked suddenly. The question startled her. Ah, yes, my lord. How many? His eyes, storm gray and penetrating, seemed to look straight through her careful disguise. Caught off guard, Zenobia answered truthfully before she could stop herself. I speak 9 languages, she said proudly, then immediately bit her lip at her own foolishness. Lord Kieran laughed, though this time the sound held more surprise than derision. 9 languages? From a lady's maid? That seems rather excessive for discussing laundry soap and hairpins. The surrounding guests tittered appreciatively at his wit. The Duchess frowned, beginning to look genuinely discomfited by the attention her maid was receiving. Zipporah, you will return to your duties immediately, she commanded. I shall speak with you tomorrow about the appropriate behavior for a servant. Yes, your grace. Zenobia curtsied one final time and made her escape, heart pounding. What had she been thinking? 2 years of careful concealment potentially ruined by one moment of weakness. But as she hurried through the corridors, she heard footsteps behind her. Miss Zipporah. She turned to find Lord Kieran following her, his expression unreadable. Propriety demanded she stop, though wisdom suggested flight might be the better option. My lord. She kept her tone respectful, her eyes appropriately lowered. You are no lady's maid, he stated flatly. Zenobia's heart nearly stopped. I assure you, my lord, I am employed as such by the Duchess. That is not what I meant, and you know it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your posture, your diction, your musical ability, all speak of a genteel upbringing. Not to mention your claim of linguistic proficiency. Many people exaggerate their abilities, my lord. His eyes narrowed. Prove it then. My lord, speak to me in another language. Let us start with French. Zenobia hesitated only briefly before replying in flawless Parisian French. My lord is very persistent. Perhaps he should direct his attention back to the ball, where doubtless many young ladies await his company. Without missing a beat, he responded in the same language. I find my current company far more intriguing. Perhaps Italian next. She switched to Italian, her accent that of a native Florentine. It is inappropriate for you to be speaking privately with a servant. People will talk. Let them, he replied in the same tongue. Greek, if you please. They continued through German, Spanish, and Russian before Zenobia finally held up a hand. Enough, my lord. You have made your point, and I have been most unwise. Reverting to English, he said quietly, Who are you? For a moment, she considered maintaining her deception, but something in his expression, curiosity without condemnation, made her reckless. I am no one of consequence any longer, she said simply, and I must return to my duties before I am missed. Wait, he began, but she had already slipped away down a servant's passage, leaving him standing alone in the corridor. The following morning, the ton buzzed with gossip about the Duchess of Emberton's unusually talented lady's maid. By afternoon, speculation had reached fever pitch, with some claiming she was a foreign princess in disguise and others insisting she must be the illegitimate daughter of a music master. Zenobia, meanwhile, had been summoned to the Duchess's private sitting room. Explain yourself, Her Grace demanded without preamble. I apologize most sincerely for my presumption last night, Your Grace, Zenobia began. I am not interested in apologies. I wish to know how my lady's maid came to possess the accomplishments of a gentlewoman. Are you a fallen woman? Have you been in service elsewhere? Zenobia took a deep breath. The time for complete concealment had passed. No, Your Grace. I was once of a different station. The Duchess's eyes widened. Are you claiming to be gently born? Yes, Your Grace. My father was the Earl of Hartwood. Impossible. The Earl's daughter went abroad after his death. A convenient fiction to spare my mother further embarrassment, Zenobia explained. In truth, I sought employment to support myself. The Duchess rose from her chair, face flushed with indignation. You have deceived me, entered my household under false pretenses. I have served you faithfully and well, Zenobia countered, then added more softly. But yes, I did conceal my true identity. For that, I am sorry. You must leave at once. I cannot have a gentlewoman, fallen though she may be, serving as my maid. The scandal. Of course, Your Grace. I shall pack my things immediately. And so it was that Lady Zenobia Montague, once the toast of her debut season and now disgraced lady's maid, found herself on the doorstep of the Duchess of Emberton's residence with one small valise and nowhere to go. She had just decided to seek temporary lodging at a respectable inn when a gleaming black carriage drew up beside her. The door swung open to reveal Lord Kieran Ivington. "I thought I might find you thus," he remarked, his expression grave. "The Duchess is not known for her understanding nature." Zenobia lifted her chin. "Have you come to witness my humiliation, my lord?" "On the contrary, I've come to offer assistance." She laughed bitterly. "What assistance could be proper between us? I am a lady without protection, and you are a gentleman with a reputation to maintain. Get in the carriage, Lady Zenobia." She gasped. "How did you?" "I have resources at my disposal. Once I suspected your true nature, it was not difficult to make inquiries." He extended his hand. "Please, I am taking you to your mother's sister, Lady Brighthurst. She has agreed to receive you." Stunned, Zenobia allowed him to help her into the carriage. As they set off through London's bustling streets, she found her voice again. "Why would you do this?" Lord Kieran regarded her thoughtfully. Initially, curiosity. It's not every day one encounters a multilingual lady's maid with the hands of a pianist and the bearing of a countess. And now I find myself intrigued by a woman who chose honest work over dependency when fate dealt her an unkind hand. His lips curved into a rare smile. Besides, anyone who can quote Aristotle in the original Greek deserves better than to be cast onto the street. Zenobia felt a blush warming her cheeks. "You are very kind, my lord." "Kieran," he corrected. "If we are to be friends, and I hope we shall be, you must use my given name when propriety allows." "Friends?" she echoed, surprised. "To begin with," he replied enigmatically. And begin they did. Under Lady Brighthurst's generous sponsorship, Zenobia was gradually reintroduced to society, not as the penniless daughter of a disgraced earl, but as a young woman of exceptional accomplishments who had shown remarkable fortitude in adversity. The ton, ever hungry for novelty, embraced the narrative wholeheartedly. Lady Zenobia Montague became the sensation of the little season, her musical performances requested at the finest gatherings, her linguistic abilities a source of fascination rather than suspicion. Through it all, Lord Kieran remained her steadfast supporter, escorting her to events, engaging her in multilingual debates that left onlookers bewildered, and glaring intimidatingly at anyone who dared whisper about her past. "He's in love with her," declared Lady Pennington to the Duchess of Emberton at a particularly crowded rout. "Mark my words." The Duchess, still smarting from the revelation that she had employed an earl's daughter as her maid, sniffed disapprovingly. A man of his standing could do better than damaged goods. Unfortunately for the Duchess, Lord Kieran happened to be passing behind their chairs at that precise moment. He paused, his expression turning to ice. "Your Grace," he said, his voice carrying just far enough to reach nearby ears. "I find it remarkable that you consider Lady Zenobia damaged when she possesses more grace, intelligence, and genuine nobility in her little finger than many who have never known a day's hardship can claim in their entire being." With that, he bowed rigidly and moved away, leaving the Duchess pale with mortification and Lady Pennington hiding a smile behind her fan. When he reached Zenobia, who was conversing in fluent Portuguese with the ambassador from that country, his thunderous expression immediately softened. "Is something amiss?" she asked, noting the change. "Nothing worth mentioning," he assured her, offering his arm. "Would you care to take some air on the terrace? It's grown rather stuffy in here." The terrace, conveniently lit only by moonlight and a few distant lanterns, offered the privacy that propriety barely allowed. As they strolled along its length, Zenobia found herself uncharacteristically nervous. "You've been very quiet this evening," she ventured. "Have I? I apologize. I've been thinking." "A dangerous pastime," she teased. He smiled, the rare, genuine smile that transformed his austere features. "Indeed, especially when my thoughts center exclusively on you." Her heart fluttered treacherously. "Me? Whatever for? For making me question everything I thought I wanted in life." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Before I met you, I believed I understood the qualities I sought in a wife. Good family, impeccable manners, suitable accomplishments, the usual list." "A very sensible list," she murmured, hardly daring to breathe. "Sensible, yes, but incomplete. It failed to include courage, resilience, or the ability to play Mozart while pretending to be a lady's maid. His eyes, warm now rather than stormy, held hers. It said nothing about the capacity to maintain dignity in the face of adversity or the wisdom to value substance over appearance. "Kieran, let me finish, please." He took her hands in his. "I love you, Zenobia. Not despite your unconventional past, but because of it. Because it shaped you into the extraordinary woman you are." Tears welled in her eyes. "The tongue will talk. They always do. Let them. We can converse in 9 languages they won't understand." He smiled again, then sobered. "Unless, of course, you don't return my feelings. In which case, I beg you to forget this conversation entirely." Zenobia laughed softly. "How could I not love you? You found me when I was lost, believed in me when I had forgotten to believe in myself, and never once made me feel ashamed of what I had endured." With a groan of relief, he pulled her into his arms. "Then marry me. Make me the happiest of men." "Yes," she whispered against his shoulder. "Yes, in all 9 languages and any others I might learn in the future." Their wedding, held 3 months later in the chapel at Ravenhurst, his family's ancestral estate, was the event of the season. The Duchess of Emberton was not invited. Lady Pennington, however, was given a place of honor and delighted in telling anyone who would listen. "I always said there was something special about that girl, even when she was pressing Emberton's gowns. A true lady cannot hide her nature, no matter how humble her circumstances." And if the bride and groom exchanged their vows in 9 different languages, alternating with each phrase, well, the guests found it charming rather than eccentric, which only proves how quickly society adapts when it chooses to do so. As for Lord and Lady Ivington, they spent their honeymoon touring the continent, where Zenobia's linguistic abilities proved most useful and Kieran's diplomatic connections opened doors everywhere. They returned to England with the first of what would eventually be 6 children, all of whom, naturally, grew up speaking multiple languages and playing Mozart from memory. And if occasionally, when they were alone, Zenobia would put on an apron and pretend to be Zipporah again, well, dear reader, what happens in the private chambers of happily married couples is entirely their own affair. But that, as they say, is another story entirely.